Ghostbusters Afterlife is overperforming and beating a lot of the early projections from just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, as a matter of fact. This from the numbers. We got the fresh estimates this morning for the entire weekend, and I do stress the word estimates because, of course, Sunday's not over yet. But there's a lot of interesting data points that aren't reflected in the actual box office performance, and that's what we want to talk about as well. So stick around. We're about to get into it. Here we go. Online. Well, good Sunday afternoon. Before we get into it, just want to thank everyone for being here. Almost at 2,100 subscribers. The growth in this past month has been outstanding, thanks in large part to you. So make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, that notification bell, like this video out, share it out, and most importantly, drop a comment before you head out. And let me know what your thoughts are on the Ghostbusters movie, because I really enjoyed it. But here we go. Well, good Sunday afternoon, folks. We have got some fresh numbers out for Ghostbusters opening weekend. Right now, they are projecting that this movie will wrap up its inaugural frame at $44 million. I happen to think they might still be a little light, and I'm going to tell you why. Not tremendously. I'm not saying it's going to come back at 55 or 60 million or anything like that. But I still think it's a little light, and I'll talk about why. The metrics, the scores, the audience scores for this movie have been tremendous across the board. We're going to talk about some of that data in just a moment. Let's cover the actual weekend performance first. Full disclosure, I did see this movie. My theater finally reopened in the past week, and I got to go see this movie Thursday night, which I didn't anticipate because I couldn't wait till Friday. I had bought tickets for Friday, so I went back Friday with one of the other Renegade kids who didn't get to see it Thursday with me, and I enjoyed the heck out of it both times. I could highly recommend this movie to anybody, especially families, people with kids. Like me, I've got 3 between the ages of 10 and 16. They loved it. We all loved it. It's a great family movie. It's a great movie. Sure, it's not perfect. It's got some issues with it, but what movie doesn't? It's very rare these days to see a perfect movie, but it really did hit all the right notes it needed to hit, in my opinion, and I did enjoy it very, very much. So let's talk about this. 44 million, and at first glance you think, that's not that great. It's 44 million. I mean, right? We just had Shang-Chi and Eternals and all these Marvel pictures coming up with 70 and 80 million dollars. And that's fine and good, but of course this movie doesn't have that Marvel logo at the front of it, and there is a built-in big bump for those films, to be sure. However, as we talked about in the last video, there is something that sets this film drastically apart from a Marvel picture, and that is its astonishingly well-controlled $75 million production budget, which is nuts. It's absolutely nuts that they pulled this movie off, and it shows that it still can be done in Hollywood, that fiscal responsibility can still happen in Hollywood, and you still make a good picture that can be a success at the box office. Of course, you're talking about Marvel movies that spend $200 million, 75 million right here. It's amazing. So let's talk about this. This is from the numbers, and to this point in the day, Box Office Mojo has not updated their weekend chart yet, although it might happen by the time you see this video and it gets out to you. Last week, they had some more updated international figures than the numbers did for some reason, so I'm curious to see how that pans out. But let's read this first. From the numbers, Ghostbusters Afterlife is tearing into theaters this weekend with a strong $44 million opening, according to Sony's Sunday morning projection. That's well ahead of our model's pre-release prediction of $25 million, and comfortably exceeds the model's prediction based on the Thursday previews, which were $4.5 million, by the way, if you missed the last video, of $36.2. It's also the studio's second legitimate hit of the year after Venom, so on and so forth. Their theatrical-only strategy is paying off. Yes, of course it is. Of course it is. People want to go back to the theaters if you give them something they want to go see. I've been saying this. You just have to open the door and let them in and not screw it up by doing day-and-date streaming, as too many other studios have done. But let's talk about this. In the last video, I said after the Friday morning, after we got some Thursday night preview projections, that I think this movie was going to outperform for the weekend. I know I mentioned this Friday morning on Midnight's Edge, talked about this. I had a good feeling about this. I said I think it could get to the 50s at that point because, seeing a $16.5 million total Friday with that $4.5 million Thursday night preview, that's a good overperformance on a Friday given a 4.5 million Thursday night. That's almost a 4x multiplier, 3.5x multiplier based on that Thursday night preview. That's pretty darn good. And then I said if Saturday and Sunday just kind of come in averaging around 17 million, we'll be at the $50 million mark. So let's go into these numbers and see exactly what they're looking at, and we'll try to come up with something. So let's go into this. And real quickly, obviously the Eternals, I called it, they were projecting, I think Box Office Pro, who, by the way, had Ghostbusters at 45 million in its mid-range going into this weekend. Box Office Pro is pretty much on the money with that. But Eternals, they had her closer to 12 million. I said I thought it would fall further than that. It would be in the 10s, mid to low 10s. Well, it's at 10.8 is the estimate right now. I think it might come in a little bit lower than that. So there you go. And Clifford held in surprisingly strong with only a 51% decline weekend over weekend. So that's been doing pretty darn well. King Richard was another one that came out this weekend, although I'm not even going to bother talking about this. This was another Warner Brothers day and date release on HBO Max. They really didn't put any marketing effort behind it. So it is what it is. And then, of course, Dune. So let's go into Ghostbusters Afterlife here, and let's look at this. So they have an estimate already of international box office. There are a significant number of international countries, territories that are not going to open Ghostbusters for another 2 weeks. So stay tuned on that one. But let's go down here, and you can see this is where I'm a little tepid on this estimate. I think this is, again, Sony trying to underpromise and overdeliver as they did coming into this weekend with their projections for what Ghostbusters Afterlife would do. So there we are. We have Thursday, November 18th. The Thursday previews at 4.5 million. Now, just so you understand, that figure is then compiled in to this one, to the Friday figure. So that 16.5 million includes the 4.5 million from Thursday night. That is typical standard practice for how opening weekends are done with Thursday previews. Nothing abnormal. That's also why it's not highlighted in pink. That's not part of the gross figure. And you can see here, Saturday. Now, this would be an actual figure, right? We should know by now exactly what Saturday did, or pretty darn close. 16.17 million. I said that I thought it would hold on and stay around 17 million, so I was a little under on that one. But this is where I might take a little bit issue. This is the estimate, of course, for Sunday, because Sony would have projected this, or the projections would have been made last night or early this morning based on the film's yesterday performance. And again, they have metrics out there that says if it did so much on Friday and it did so much on Saturday, then we can estimate based on past history, formulas, blah, 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 that it's going to do about this on a Sunday. And I'm going to tell you why I think that might be a little short in this case. I hope it is, at least. But I have good reason to think that this number could come in lower than what it should be. I think this might be a million or two higher. I think it really could. So let's talk about why that is. And for that, I want to go over to a Deadline article that came out this morning, or was updated this morning, I should say, right here. Ghostbusters Afterlife calls up a $44 million opening weekend. This is the Sunday AM update, and it goes through a lot of the same data that we just discussed that I don't think that we need to really go over again. But there are some key pieces here that we have, some more information on as to why I think this movie is overperforming. And going into the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, we've got a lot of kids getting out of school. I think this movie is going to hold fairly well. Let's talk about why, because I think this is the most important part of this video to convey where all this is coming from. So if you don't know, they have several third-party private marketing tracking type firms that look at audience scores. Think of exit polling like at elections, right? So they basically track people's opinions and responses to films after they see the movie, and they give Hollywood a good sense of what's working and what isn't. Hopefully they'll listen to that more nowadays. But here we are. ComScore reports that 41% of K-12 schools are off tomorrow, meaning Monday, and 16% of colleges. That grows to 80% K-12 and 61% college break by Wednesday, before both are 100% off, of course, Thursday and Friday, with the Thanksgiving holidays. And on that note, I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving coming up. But let's go down here, because there's a second part that I want to talk about. All right, so this was the Saturday morning update that came out yesterday. I deliberately wanted to hold off doing a video until today when we had the full weekend estimate, because I really wanted to see what the experts, quote unquote, or what the studio would kind of figure they were going to put for Sunday. So now that we have that 11.3, let's talk about why I think that could be wrong. Talking about here an expected, this was yesterday. They expected beating its 30 to 35 million industry expectations with an expected 40.5 million opening weekend after a $16.5 million Friday, and I'll put in the word surprise because that was a surprise for them, which includes the Thursday previews. So as of yesterday morning, they expected after the $16.5 million Friday, they expected this film to be at 40 million after they originally said 35 million. Now today, they've bumped that estimate up again now that we have actual Saturday results to 44.5 million, right? Or 44 million. But right around that mark, I think that's going to raise again. I think they're probably out of kilter on the Sunday figure because this movie continues to overperform the expectations going into this weekend. And let's talk about why. Box office analytics firm EntTelligence, which is a private firm, it stands for Entertainment Intelligence, calculated that 1.25 million have seen Ghostbusters Afterlife since its Thursday preview. This, of course, included Friday night. This does not include Saturday, does not include Sunday. Just to be clear, this was the Saturday morning 8 a.m. update yesterday, about 24 to 28 hours ago by the time I'm recording this. Close to a third of the movie's opening day business came after 8 p.m., which means it's a big matinee driver, which means more expensive tickets, right? An indicator that families are seeing it, according to CinemaScore, which is another tracking system, and Screen Engine's PostTrack. Screen Engine is another private firm. Matter of fact, here, this is Screen Engine. If you want to go check it out, here's their website, although they don't give you too much information on their metrics. And just also, this is EntTelligence if you want to check them out as well. So close to a third of the audience was composed of a family, adult, and child under 12. And I was one of them. So I had my 16-year-old daughter see it Thursday night, and then Friday night I was there with Renegade Jr., who's 10. So, this is exactly the people I saw in the theater that was packed out with dads, moms, with a bunch of kids with them going to see this film. Post-track parents, and this is key, the parents gave the movie 5 stars, while kids under 12 gave it 4.5. This is a movie that is really beloved across the demographic groups, and that's really important, and it gets better. Whether this sequel goes higher hinges on even more families coming out today, meaning Saturday, yesterday. Word of mouth is already great for this sequel, which many Ghostbusters fans say finally delivers. Afterlife received an A- CinemaScore, slightly higher than the last one, which was graded B+. By the way, that last one came out in the middle of July. That came out as a attempt at a summer blockbuster film and cost Sony a bunch of money. They lost oodles on that movie. Did not do very well. That movie, again, as I mentioned in the previous video, had a budget that was twice as much, double the budget of this film, of Afterlife, which is amazing. Still amazing to me. But let's talk more about some of these metrics. Post-track has a good 69% of definite recommend. That's really high for a definite recommend for the film, which is higher than the 57% of the picks starring the previous folks. And look, this is great. Jason Reitman and Paul Feig, even being very cordial to each other. This is great. This is the kind of thing I'd rather see than them sniping at each other. Although I don't think Jason Reitman what I expected Paul Feig might have, but good for Paul Feig. That's very gentlemanly of him, and we appreciate that, sir. Overall, general audiences gave Ghostbusters Afterlife 4 stars with 82% positive. Those in distribution also like to look towards Rotten Tomatoes audience meter. That's at 95% currently and still is of verified ratings. The demo giving Ghostbusters Afterlife its best grade on PostTrack was the 45 to 54 age bunch who turned out at 11% and gave the pick a 90% grade. These were the kids when the movie first came out in 1984. I'm not quite 45 yet, but I was a kid when it came out. Afterlife through the holiday weekend into the Black Friday frame, especially as more kids get off of school, Thanksgiving, this is really going to amplify, I think, over the course of the week. PostTrack reports that 61% of Ghostbusters Afterlife's audience bought their ticket the day of. Key. This is a great sign of walk-up business, which is what usually a result of good word of mouth. So anyway, this is really great all across the board. Some more posts here from Jason Reitman, the film's director, son of course, Ivan Reitman, who was producing the film as well. Kids under 12 gave Ghostbusters Afterlife 88% positive rating and 55% definite recommend. Feig's previous Ghostbusters drew females, and the Reitman-directed sequel here brought in 60% guys, 40% women. An older-leaning audience turned out for Ghostbusters Afterlife with 72% over the age of 25. In addition, the prime movie-going group, 18 to 34, only repped 44% of the crowd. Those over 35 made up 47%, which is very encouraging. Broken down further, men over 25 repped 43% of all Ghostbusters Afterlife ticket buyers, grade of 85% on the movie. Women over 25 repped 29% with an 88% grade. So even the women that are going to see it love this movie, which you would think this is just a great all-around fun family film. Men under 25 were 17% of the makeup of the audience, 67% grade. Probably because they don't have the same appreciation for some of the originals. I can understand that. While women under 25 numbered 11%, 75% grade. So still really enjoyed the film. And the diversity draw, 48% Caucasian, a strong Latino and Hispanic turnout of 25%, 11% African-American, and 9% Asian. So we get all the demographic breakdown. So what does that mean? Is that we really have a good cross-section of audiences going into this movie and really loving it. And that's great for a film like this going into a holiday week. So here's the bottom line, folks. I think this movie's doing pretty darn well, and it does not have a high hurdle to get over to really make a profit. And I think it's relatively well on track to do that. It's easy to go back and compare this to the numbers of the 2016 Ghostbusters, which slightly overperformed it at this moment that we have these estimates. But again, these are not final figures. However, again, that was in the middle of summer. This is now in the middle of November. People still out there, want to say, well, people aren't showing up to the theaters because of the pandemic and the lockdowns and things like this. Well, the screens are still open. And I understand that some people choose not to go because of that, or they can't because of restrictions based on your medical status. I can't say the word. They don't let you say it on YouTube. I can't, it's the thing with the stick in the arm and that, you get me. You get me. So any case, I think all in all, this is doing very well, although I don't want to use that as an excuse, and I think it was also wise not to do a day-and-date release with this. They committed to staying theatrical on this one, and I think it's going to serve it very, very well. So we're going to see by the end of next weekend, by the end of the Black Friday, post-Thanksgiving weekend, we're going to have a much better idea of how this movie is going to turn out long run. We're going to see what kind of legs that it's grown, if any. I think it will grow some. And how much repeat business, that kind of thing. So, any case, did you see the movie yet? Do you want to see the movie? What did you think about the movie? What do you think about the box office? Give me some comments below. Appreciate everybody being here. It's good to see everybody again. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button before you check out. And of course, again, until next time, take care.